Welcome, everybody. I really find it very heartfelt that here we are in this beautiful little place in Mexico, and we just choose to be here in this moment together, and the simplicity and the humility of that always strikes me, because I really feel like the path is simple, and so everything is very symbolic in my mind of that. And I love when we can join, like when we can just really look at each other, see each other, feel each other, hear each other, and so to have a little gathering like this, and we have someone on the Skype that's joining us, and did have some requests for this to be Zoomed, but didn't feel it in my heart that that was the direction right now, to Zoom. I think that what lights us up is to be able to really apply the Course teachings in a way that continually inspires and uplifts. We're not really here to talk about the concepts of the Course in Miracles. I think most people in this room know quite a bit about the Course in Miracles and what it's saying. And so our inspiration and our inspiration, Willow and Laverne and I coming together last year and leaving community was a calling for a deeper expansion, and it was almost like, Jesus talks about, that there's rungs. It's like rungs on a ladder, and once that rung has been, you've sat on that rung for a while, and you had to stretch to get to that rung at first, and then the rung felt really good and you wanted to stay on the rung, right? And then but you have to continually be expanding and deepening in this if the pathway is A Course in Miracles for you. You should always feel like you're expanding into a deeper and deeper actual experience of God's love, of the love of what we are. And the alchemy of awakening is really it's been quite new in many ways, but it's also kind of been a fruition of something that had been gone into for so long, the Course in Miracles, and letting go of the self-concept, and what does that do? The mind training and the looking upon your own self-deceit, it starts to uncover what you are. And what you are is that purity and that naturalness of love, of peace. And I used to think it was some amazing, outrageous, nirvanic experience. And I've had those. And they kept me at this path through the tough times, because I had witnessed for myself something much bigger than regular human life on planet Earth. And so, those rungs have to be let go of. And I certainly never thought I would let go of that rung. I always felt like I would be there with David physically and with the community. And then, it was like, no, this is that's your plan, Suzanne, but that's not the plan. And so it takes courage to take these steps, and some seem much bigger than others, right? But I think the biggest step is true forgiveness. The biggest step is letting go of being right. The biggest step is letting go of your judgment of your brother. The biggest step is continually surrendering to Thy will be done, not my will. And I used to think that when I would say Thy will be done, I meant it. But then I was proven over the years how there was still like this, like a spiritual is wrapped in spiritual wrapping, but it was my idea of spirituality. It was my idea of my spiritual path. And so, and it's all innocent, right? It's all innocent. You don't know it until you know it. But I think that that's what inspired to just be here and allow people to come and be a part of whatever it is that seems to come out of our mouths is simply for us to extend what we have been given, and I feel very, honestly, many times on the path I didn't think I was going to make it because it was so rough. And it was rough because I was so thick in my belief about what I was. And there was a lot of dissolving and melting away of things that I held dear about myself. And so, we've been talking a little bit this week, Laverne and Will and I, about the spiritual self-concept and how difficult that one is to let go of. And because it's so it seems like it's so valued, right? Like it's a spiritual self-concept. It's a good thing. And I remember when I came into community, I had a very strong spiritual self-concept. And I was a leader. I had a retreat center. I was a teacher, all these things. And when I came into community, that all got a bit dashed. In fact, I think for the first couple of years I wasn't even to speak. Because I always thought I knew. I always thought I knew what somebody else needed. I really did. It was very sincere. I thought I was a good counselor and I was a, blah, blah, blah. And I remember there are times where, during this time of the dissolving of that particular construct, which I'm not saying that the construct wasn't helpful at the time, because what we do is, salvation is the undoing of the self-concept. That's what salvation is. And so while I was traveling down this road, you start to release one self-concept that no longer serves for another one. And if you have a prayer of your heart for healing, then those self-concepts will become more and more helpful. Like I went from owning beauty salons to owning a retreat center, because my prayer became more and more in tune, and so the reflection of that, the beauty salon had to be turned in, then it was turned into a retreat center, then it was turned into a monastery. It just goes on and on. So it's not there's anything bad about self-concepts. It's just that is the release of self-concept is salvation. So okay, where is it that I'm feeling that I can release this self-concept, this belief that I'm a human being living on this earth and trying to wake up? And of course, we do this every single time in this meeting, is that's an impossible situation. And it's an impossible situation to come from that place of being a human being and trying to wake up. And so I reiterate over and over, and because the veils of forgetfulness are so strong, they are so strong that you will forget. You will leave here and you'll forget. And so it's why Jesus has a book that's so thick, because we're so thick-minded that we have to be reminded over and over and over of the same thing. And it's same is true when we come together. We remind each other of our divinity. Hopefully that is the only reason you're coming together with another, a holy encounter. How you see your brother, you'll see yourself. So in the last retreat in Portugal, there was a lot of writing. The server of the medicine, he even while people were in the medicine, would have them write down what they were experiencing, and he would have them dyad. It was like a full-on workshop in the middle of medicine. It wasn't like just going off into some oblivious state, as nice as that is. But we're here to remember, right? We're here to remember who we are. And because the veils are so thick, and because they're so strong, and the mesmerization of this hallucination is so seeming real, that we really need to be vigilant to remember. And the only proper use of memory is to remember God, is to remember love. And so the veils, they come, and so I always say, I really don't say much different. I usually say the same thing over and over, because, and especially now, because we've been given the guidance that, this is really, the extension is to be about projection, what is projection? And if you get that, if you really start to grok that and feel it in your heart, like, oh my God, there isn't a real situation, no matter how strong it seems, going on outside of me. No matter how upset, no matter how much evidence, no matter how much evidence you have that it's real, it's not. And so we want to unpack that. We want to be able to start to actually believe it, even though we don't believe it fully. If the Course in Miracles is your pathway, then let it be your pathway. And I would highly recommend not mixing it with a lot of other things, because as subtle as they are, there are differences. And the Course in Miracles is a full and complete handbook out of hell. It's like really a manual that we never got when we were born. Well, we've got it now, right? We truly do have this manual. It's complete. And so it's not that you don't use tools to help, through different times, but it really is like, if it's your focus, and then the Spirit will give you the tools that might be helpful to crack through something or some belief that you have. And, because people have said to me, well, isn't medicine magic? I said, yeah, of course it is. Everything is magic in this world. It just depends on how you use it. The Course in Miracles is magic. It's a book with words. It's magical, And so everything is magic, but it's how you use it. And does it help you to wake up, or does it help you to continue to sleep? And that's how you look. When it says look upon things through the Holy Spirit's eyes, it's really looking through upon things with that purpose of healing. Because if you look on everything with purpose for healing, then you will receive it. You will receive that peace of mind. You'll receive that place in your heart where you're not at effect because somebody's going off about something and you feel responsible for it. And so being a human is very stressful. Being a human is very hard. It takes a lot of effort to be a human. And we are not human. And this is what the Course tells us. You are spirit. You are spirit. It's like, oh wow, okay, I think I'm a human. I think I have a body. I think I have to defend myself. I have to make my way. I have to wake myself up. I have to grab at whatever kind of happiness might be there. And I have to make sure that I get that happiness, because if I don't, nobody else is going to give it to me. So we talk primarily about projection, and we talk about forgiveness and the power of those two things. It's a recognition that I do this to myself and this I can undo. And so then the forgiveness part comes in. And then that light within you, that wisdom within you, is the healer. You can call it what you want. I call it wisdom. It's called the Holy Spirit. Whatever works for you. But there is a power within us that we are remembering. That power is what we are remembering. That authenticity and that naturalness of what we are is what we're remembering. I mean, that's inspiring. That's inspiring to be on the pathway of remembering. Like, you can't cultivate love. You can't focus on love. The reason you can't focus on love is because you don't know what love is, right? Love is what we are. And so the best use of time is to see what blocks you from your peace. What is blocking you from your peace? An opinion, an assumption, because the mind is full of them. And then that's where that practice, that deep practice comes in of, I'm worthy to not have a mind filled with opinions and assumptions. And it's madness. It's true madness. I mean, Jesus, I swear, the most used word in A Course in Miracles is insanity. He says it over and over. He keeps telling it, it's insane, it's insane, you're insane, you're insane. It's like, okay, I'm insane. And I've felt so insane, and the more you walk towards that insane, the more as you start to pierce the veil of that insanity, the more insane you feel. And that's why he says at a certain point, you won't go alone, you'll go with mighty companions by your side. And it's up to you to be open to those mighty companions. And sometimes there's a let go of other companions. But, it's like, does this relationship help me wake up, or does this relationship help me to sleep? It's a really simple question. And then to be honest with yourself, because a lot of people, I was quite driven. I was quite driven. I had quite a deep call since I was a child. And we feel like, we've talked about this too, that there's a quickening happening. There's a quickening happening. And the closer we get to that light, the more vicious the ego's going to get. And guess what? For the most part, it's going to show up out there, seemingly out there, over there. And it's going to start to just rock and just try to get your attention and scream in your face. Could be anything from the COVID, whatever, 19, 18, I don't know what number it is. Could be that. It could be the riots. It could be, not being able to get back to your home country. It could be countless things. It could be health. It could be anything, But while you're believing that this projection is real, while you're actually, and I'm not saying to deny it, because that's not improper use of denial, but it's start to question it deeply, deeply, deeply. And I know that a lot of you have been on this path for a while. It's like, let's notch it up, let's go deeper. Let's not just, Jesus says we're way too tolerant of mind wandering. And I was in community for 2 years, and I realized that 99% of my mind was mind wandering, and I was shocked. Because it's so mesmerizing. Everything, and you're always watching about what's going on over there, and get your mind out of other people's minds. Honestly, that right there, if you just keep your mind in your own business, and let people do whatever they do. And we've talked about this many, many times about personalities. You will never join with personalities. Personalities will always clash. Personalities are things of words, of opinions, of assumptions. And a great veil of forgetfulness can happen when you're in conversations, right? And unless that conversation is dedicated within yourself, and maybe you have a companion that you can do it with, where it's dedicated to love and forgiveness and the higher purpose of awakening. And so there are relationships that probably will be let go of as you journey down this pathway, because you're going deeper and deeper and deeper into this realization of this naturalness of who you are. And as you do that, naturally things fall away that aren't vibing with that same thing. It has to be, And I went through kind of a radical undoing, and some of us here have, of letting go of friends and family and this and that, and they've all been returned, the ones that, the truth. But I had to go into a deep kind of debriefing of myself, small s, right? And so we're here to honor the big self, the capital S self, and to focus on whatever it is that is in need of being let go of, so that the remembrance of who you are and the naturalness, it's so natural, it's as natural as breathing, it's so easy. All of a sudden you don't have a life of effort. All of a sudden you're not trying to figure out what to do in the future. It's actually absurd. It's an absurd thought to me to think about, I need to do this in order to sustain myself. I need to do a certain amount of retreats in order. It just doesn't even occur to me. It's like, if the retreats happen, they happen. If this gathering in this room on Saturdays happens, it happens. It's like this beautiful, as the forgiveness gets stronger and stronger in your mind, the experience that starts to happen, and it seems like it's the word of the day, the naturalness occurs, where you are at rest in your heart, of hearts, you're in deep rest, no matter what's happening. And so it's not about negating the hallucination, but please, let's call it what it is. This world is a hallucination. Jesus says it in the Course in Miracles. I believe him. I've been in times with my mind and in my own experience, as others in this room have been, where all of this has been dissolved. And there's a beauty that is so far beyond words that you can't even begin to express what that's like, right? And so here we are, and I used to be steadfast on enlightenment. I had to get enlightened. I mean, oh my God, it was just relentless, and because I had these enlightening experiences where the world disappeared and all was one. I chased it, and I see now that there was a distortion there. As sincere as it was a distortion, because guess what? the Course in Miracles was my pathway, and the Course in Miracles says that revelation is great. It's a great thing to have a revelation. It's it's like a glimpse, right? And I don't understand this part, but we can't go home without our brother. I tried. I didn't really, I really didn't want to, have a lot of people around or live in community or any of that stuff. I was very, very much wanting to meditate and just, zip on out of here. So if the Course in Miracles is your path, there is this stage called the happy dream. And that's not to be skipped over. And I really tried to skip over that part because I figured, happiness, big deal, I want this, this amazing that goes beyond words experience. So so what we share here and what we're all about is just really holding hands with those who really want to go into this in a deeper way. I'm not an advocate of skipping around from teachers to teachers. I just think it's actually an addiction. It's actually an addiction. And at first, when you're first opening up to spirituality, that's cool. You got all this plethora of, and with that internet, it's like, oh my God, it's like, and it feels really good, right? Because you're just learning, you're just opening up to these things. So it's all good. It all has its place. But at a certain point, if you're not happy consistently, if you're not feeling I rest in God as a true experience, and when I say I rest in God as a true experience, it doesn't mean that everything is just, everything is so good. It simply means that I have enough experience through forgiveness that I know the outcome is certain, so I can rest in that. So, so coming together in this way is to come deeper and deeper into the experience that, number one, mighty companions are given. The minute you get real serious about this path, the mighty companions will be there because it's too difficult to do it on your own. I'm not saying you can't, but it's very time consuming, and it's the reason it's such an acceleration with mighty companions and with community and joining in purpose is you get to see exactly what you believe in any given moment because it's sitting across the room from you. And that is such a powerful awakener if you will allow it to be. And even if you have all the evidence in the world that the person is a jerk or that they really are not good or whatever, it's like it is your judgment. And the forgiven mind is simply, the peaceful mind is simply a mind that doesn't have judgment in it. And so as you see your brother and you see yourself, it's like that alone will release you. That alone will take you so far into the peace of God. Assumptions, and then how the mind just goes crazy. Like somebody can look at you a certain way or say a certain thing, and you spin out this whole entire universal story about what they're thinking. And that's why I say, do yourself some kindness and bring back your stories about what your brother is going through or what they're thinking about you or what they're up to or how off they are. Do that for yourself. Do that for yourself because that's a massive one. I mean, it's almost like we were brought up to be reaction machines and to figure things out, not only for ourselves, but everybody else. And so we want to bring this down to a real simplicity of seeing where you actually have the judgments in your mind and the assumptions. The assuming mind it's massively destructive to the present moment. And so, I think that just being with each other with the intention of a deeper connection, because that's how I see it. I see people come together because they're obviously looking for an expansion of something that may be happening already, where you're feeling really expansive and really beautiful already, and you just want to be in the vibe, or that there's stuff that's happening and you want to maybe take it on a little bit more deeply on how to to practically go about this. And it's not about skipping steps. And like I said, we don't focus on the love and the joy, because that comes absolutely miraculously as you practice forgiveness and start recognizing these things as truths and start believing what Jesus is saying is true. And so then it naturally, all of a sudden, the happiness starts to come. And when you forgive one thing, like if you forgive, say you're having some sort of conflict with somebody, and it's specific about something, and you forgive that, it's not just about that. It reverberates through your whole experience of your life. It's the most amazing thing. It's like it reverberates through the whole mind. And so you might think you're working very diligently on this one thing, and that's great, but then know that the blessing is going to bless so much wider and so much more vast than just that particular little thing, you know? So I want to talk a little bit about the veils of forgetfulness too, because that happens rather quickly. And I think that's why things are repeated a lot, because that's why in the last retreat in Portugal, and I watched it was very, very beautiful to watch how the shaman had people write things down. I'd never seen it before. I'd never seen working in that way when people were on medicine. And they wrote everything down, and then, you know, we had 2 follow-up calls and things on Zoom with the participants, and we would redirect them back to, now look, did you read what you wrote? Because they forget, right? We forget. This world is built to forget. This world is built to forget, and this world is never going to change. This world is not going to change. I saw this photo on Facebook of, excuse me, of where are they having the riots? In Georgia. Yeah, well, there was some building back in Martin Luther King's day. This building was on fire, right? And then fast forward, buildings are on fire. It's like all you have to do is look at the news or anything, and you can see the absolute and utter insanity. And what is so amazing about today, and I believe it's because of all the work we're doing, you know, with authentic healing, is it's getting more and more pronounced. It's getting more and more obvious of the complete and utter insanity that it is. And the wonderful part that I see is none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. You can read one news story and then boom, the other one will contradict it. Everybody's so confused. It's like there's this massive confusion because you can't trust anything that you read. And I also saw there's some kind of new technology called deep fakes. Yes, I just... It's called deep fakes, where you can literally put somebody's face on somebody else's face, and even videos are now becoming very, you know, you can't really trust what you see. But isn't it beautiful? Can we reframe this? Can we see that this is just the insanity of the mind as the mind gets closer and closer to its natural state, to its light? Then the viciousness, the ego changes from suspicious to vicious. The viciousness will start, but it's almost like laughable now of how absolutely ridiculous it all is. And if you don't go inside and you don't have a spiritual foundation, you will suffer. This is a very maddening time and can be very, very threatening to the person, right? And so I look at everything as symbolic. And so I see this stuff, and really, there's tons of compassion for what's happening. And the thing that I know, and I remember years ago when I was with Greg Braden, and he said this, and I never forgot it. He said, you know, because he studies the ancient traditions, and he said that as you go from, I don't know what it was, the fourth dimension into the fifth, the fourth world into the fifth world, or maybe it was the fifth world into the sixth world, I don't know. But he said, if you have lost touch with the heartbeat of the earth, you will go through it in fear. And if you have kept that connection, you'll go through it in love and peace. Now I look at that as symbolic. You know, the heartbeat of the earth to me is your center, your truth. You know, these are all, like in the shamanic traditions, they use Panchamama, the earth. And it's a symbol, right? I remember doing Native American ceremonies, and the fire was the symbol of God. And so it's like we have to get beyond these words of differences and see what it's all pointing to. But I thought, wow, that's really beautiful. If you get caught on the screen and try to take sides, whether it's vaccines or whatever, you will suffer. You will suffer. That's not the direction for the person for the one that is being called home. That's not the direction. We don't have to spend time there, okay? It's not even happening, okay? Nobody's asking you to take a vaccine right now, you know? So it's like this fear. It's like the world is doing its job. It's doing its perfect job. It's pumping out fear. It's built into that egoic. That's the projection of the tiny mad idea. But we're not the tiny mad idea. We're the way, the truth, and the life. We're the beauty, right? So we just want to fall back into that. But we have to start taking our our face off the screen. And it doesn't mean that you don't, know the current events of the world. It's just that you practice with them. Like we use movies, movies for awakening, so that you don't have to go through those actual experiences. You use the movies to see where your triggers are, where your connections are. You do that every day in your life, and you'll become free. If you use every single contraction, every single worry, every single concern, those are not natural parts of being a spirit. Those are egoic beliefs that need to be undone. And so that's where the practical application of the Course in Miracles is so important. You do not want to study the Course in Miracles for another 10 years. And I do feel like these days of, study groups for 30 years and things like that, I do believe that the opportunity to not engage in that is here. Certainly everybody can do what they want. If you want to do that, that's fine. But we want the experience, right? We all intellectually have some understanding of what the Course is saying. We want the actual experience of peace. So, and that, that does take your mind energy, but it's like, what do you want to put your mind energy into? Now, if you still want to put it into the world, that's fine. Jesus says, be very honest with yourself. But don't ever question why you're happy sometimes and not others. Just accept that, oh yeah, I'm still wanting the steak, I'm still wanting the whatever that symbolizes, if I don't have this, there will be a sacrifice. And so, it's just to be really honest. And I think it's beautiful when people are honest, and say, you know what, I really do just want to feel special. I really do want to, have a special, whatever it might be. There's no judgment in that. It's like, yes, go do what you need to do, because our calling is made sure. It's not like anybody's going to get out of here without it, So, but when you have a call in your heart, it, you can feel it, and it's and that's what I'm inspired by. I'm inspired by, let's see how this goes, together in this deep way. Like truly. And it ends up, from what I can tell so far, it ends up in a whole lot of happiness, a whole lot less stress, and beautiful things to come in to extend and be about. And it's not like you're just sitting in a room oming, which I always wanted to do, but I have plenty of time to do that too, but there's a whole lot more going on. And so, we don't have any big plan or agenda about these meetings. And I really, I felt like because Laverne and Willow and I have been traveling together for a while, and we really yield into each other. And this week, what came up a lot was just the beauty of of what happens when you get on the other side of this spiritual self-concept. And because it can be such a helpful self-concept for a while, but at a certain point you're strong enough to go on without that, without always trying to be good, without always trying to get it right. There's tremendous stress in trying to get it right, even for God, which, believe you me, that was me. It wasn't really so much about other people as I wanted to make sure I got it right for God, and I was willing to do anything. And then I realized I don't need to do anything. But that took a lot of doings to get to, I don't need to do that. And so, yeah, just Willow and Laverne, if you have anything to share about that, because I think it's really important to share things that we've actually walked through. And, we don't find any joy in just really, we have to talk about what it is that we feel inspired about, because we've actually hey, come on, we can do this, kind of thing. And then on the other side, you're just so happy. It's like, oh my God, I was hanging on so tight to those scissors, and I was poking myself in the eyes with them. And the Spirit's like, come on, give me the self-concept, yeah. It's profound.
Yeah, one thing that I've really gotten in touch with lately is this idea of how deep compromise goes. It just seems like it's a continual washing of that, where, even going into community early on, it was like you get to see how much you people please and how much you do things out of a sense of helping others, or making things right with your family or with friends, and that washing of the compromise, I feel like, has just continued for me, even with the relationship with the three of us. I really become aware of when it is that I've said yes when I meant no, and then having to go back and say I'm not feeling that, I don't know why, and just there feels like there's just this continual kind of experience of, wow, there was just a tiny bit of compromise there, and I really have become aware of it by how I feel. I know it by how I feel. There's just some, and it feels like it's getting more and more fine-tuned for me, the compromise.
Yeah, it's very fast. It seems very fast. Which that's what the miracle does, right? When you choose to speak because you're worthy to speak, right? And then it just just collapses. And so that conversation that you don't want to have with somebody is the very conversation that will free you, right? Especially amongst people who are working together on this pathway. Yeah, but you also had to just lay it down too. The story, I know for the one story about, my favorite story, one of the biggest stories for Laverne, for me, that I feel so inspired about, is that she used to think she was a Native American, right? But there's these concepts, right? But it was helpful in a way, because you were fighting for the rights and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, well, it is, in terms of that, with these riots that are going on or whatever, I remember I would really bite into that hard, especially if it seemed to do with race, color of skin, because it was such the world that I lived in on the reservation was, it just reflected back to me victimhood, and so much evidence of that historically, the way people were treated, discrimination, blah, blah. It was thick for me going into community 8 years ago. It took me that long, actually, to unwind from it. But every once in a while, I still feel a bit of a contraction. If I see a slavery show or, and then I really want to go deeper with it in that sense. I don't want to let anything go now, because I've done so much work in that area. Just over the years. And I think the strongest thing is when the evidence seems so real and so convincing. It's really when you have to do the work. It's never about somebody out there being victimizing somebody else, even though the evidence seems to show that.
Right, and this is where the rubber meets the road with forgiveness. When you have the evidence that you're right, and Jesus says you're still wrong, because you have evidence against what? An illusion. Now that's pretty deep, right? So how did you do that? How did you get to that place where you felt that? And yeah, there's still like little threads here and there, but they're very, very thin, right?
Well, it was a lot of expression, actually. I mean, it doesn't look pretty a lot of times if you're believing something. I remember I tell it to David, I would just like say it to his face, really, like, how can you not see what has happened to the Indians around here? There's so much discrimination going on in Fort Duchesne. I can't even believe you don't see it. And he just kind of looked at me really blankly, and I you just have that blank look. But he didn't ever say you're full of shit. He didn't ever say that. He just was looking at me because that wasn't his experience, but it was my experience, and I couldn't pour pink paint over it and pretend it wasn't, because it was,
right.
And so it kind of really felt. It was messy.
Yeah.
It's been messy. I can't metaphysically ghost that.
Yeah, right.
I couldn't, because
right.
it had to come out the way that it had to come out. Like I'm seeing all this discrimination, and then over the years of expressing that, it has washed, continued to wash.
Yeah, and I think that the really inspiring thing now with having the teaching distilled down for us about projection, because all that was a projection of the tiny mad idea playing out in her story, right? Yours might be rape, yours might be this, that, abuse as a child, whatever. But this is what we have to start to go, oh my God, this is the inception of this terror and pain came from the belief that we separated from our source. That's where all of this is coming from. And now that's a point of power. Like we can go back to that and go, okay, all right, that makes sense, doesn't it? If a powerful mind has chosen to believe a lie of fear, it's going to play out fear to the extreme max. I mean, all the stuff now is being revealed, the pedophilia, all the deep, dark secrets, are coming forward. And that's because we're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the light, right? So this is where the abuse, all of that stuff that was just, that's how that projection was coming through. That projector, right? And seeing yourself as a victim. That's powerful stuff when you start to get onto that. That's why we were so excited about sharing about projection, because if you spot it, you got it. It's there because you believe it. That's when Jesus says, set all the captives free. How are you going to set all the captives free while you're still believing that, the riots are caused because of racism? I mean, that seems so 2000. Doesn't it? It seems so like, come on, this is, yeah, it seems so 1964. It's like, and then we get this because we've walked through it, because we've seen it, how the mind is released. You have to be really, really, really ready to release your pain, because you're addicted to it. You're addicted to the story. You're addicted to the drama and the trauma and being a victim. That's the truth. And so as we let go of that identity, of that story, we start to align with this beauty and this naturalness. And I always say, the beauty and the naturalness is the truth of who we are. We are awake and we're tempted to sleep. We're vertical, but we're tempted to sleep. We're dreaming. And it's no important, listen to me well, it's no important than the dream last night. Oh my God. That can either free you, or you can go, I don't quite believe that, you know. And somebody was here and they had talked about some little conflict that they had with somebody, and I believe I said to them, well, if you had that as a dream last night, would you wake up and be trying to figure out what he was thinking in, you know, after you've awoke from your dream? No, you wouldn't. It would be easy to drop. And we want to get to the point where it's easy to drop. We want to become very good practitioners of forgiveness, because on the other side is freedom, and that's the only true freedom you'll ever have. There's only one relationship, and that's your relationship with God. And as we come together and we want to be in relationship seeming with each other, it's this way though, people. It's straight up. It's not like I'm going to try to make you feel better because you're feeling bad. It's like we're going to join together and see what is it that caused the belief in your mind that caused you to feel bad. You know, it can't be outside of you. And as long as you think it's outside of you, you will continually spin around in this cycle of samsara and birth and death and whatever. And it's like we don't have to do that. It's like we don't have to get caught up in that. So, yeah. Willis? Did you feel complete? Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like the last 2 or 3 months, specifically since being here in Mexico, has been facing the parts of my personality that I just try to avoid, distract in really subtle ways. And having my own place and all this idea of quarantine and blah, 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 I had a lot of time alone. And wow, I got in touch with some dark shit. Like, I really believed that I was a piece of shit. I really felt like I'd wake up in the morning and I would just be like, ugh, I want to die. Like, not I want to commit suicide, but there was some chunk that just wanted to die. This loneliness and the self-hatred and then the shame because I'm spiritual. I shouldn't be having these thoughts anymore, but I still do. And so when you're talking about, like, well, how do we move through that? Like, for me, where my guidance was to journal on my computer, and maybe I shared some of this with you guys before, but I've always been into handwriting my journals, but even that felt like there was some spiritual glitter being blown on top of that, and I could still feel a filter. And so I love to type, I'm really good at it, and I can do it with my eyes closed. So it's now become this exercise of deep communication and listening and following what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, and that's where I got really in touch with this despair and disgust, and I just let it rip. Like, I was so honest with myself, and it would bring up tears and it would bring up a lot of discomfort, but there was also this feeling of relief. Like, I can really be honest, finally. I really can just be so raw with the spirit. And the coolest thing was the messages that I kept getting in this writing was, I love you. I love you. It doesn't matter if you eat a whole jar of peanut butter or if you don't go outside for 10 days or you don't shower for 9. It doesn't matter. Like, do you understand the depths of this love that I feel for you? And to just really let that in is so, it's still good. I mean, how can you not get emotional over that? And so what worked for me was this facing off with a lifetime of a spiritual concept.
Yeah. Doing it well, doing it good.
Absolutely. I can be helpful and I can have my stuff together and I can whatever, do the Willow show. But that's so boring and it's so exhausting, and it just wasn't working anymore. And so, yeah, by really just having that courage to be with myself in that way, but to also look at it with the spirit and to see when I was feeling fear. And if I were to put the fear as the umbrella and underneath it is like loneliness and shame and all this stuff. It's like I'm in this experience of fear. What does that even mean? It's like there's such a commitment to being right about something, about, like, it's got to be true that I'm a crappy person or nobody loves me, or it's like that convincing that the ego's trying to get me to stay small and secluded and isolated. But once I catch on to that process of thought, it's like it is true liberation. It really feels, wow, I can just, I don't have to buy into this story anymore. And it doesn't look pretty. It's messy, and it's okay. Like, I'm okay with that. And that's the gift. I feel like, oh God, I would love to hold somebody's hand to go through that self-disgust and hatred. Like, to me, that's the juice, because there is this pop on the other side if you're willing to go through it fully, completely, just get naked and put yourself into that fire. You come out the other end changed.
Yeah, and the simplicity of it, the tagline for AOA was accepting a life of love, and you know, the spiritual path can be a spiritual trap. It can be a spiritual trap, because you can always be chasing some concept in your mind that is leading you down these kind of busy doings of trying to get it right. And I think the beautiful thing, Willow, that you're talking about is that you, and I've watched it over the years, you've been giving yourself, as uncomfortable as it was for you, the rest, the time to just unplug. And I don't really feel that. I don't feel that. I don't feel good. I don't feel loving. I don't feel, the classic moment when you said to me and Laverne, I don't like you guys I don't like you right now. And I was like, wow, well, how? That's...
I hate you all.
I've always said I'd rather hear somebody say I hate you than I love you with a smile on their face when I know they're lying. And so it's this, I think one of our core messages is that you're worth the time you take to be with yourself. You're worth the time to stop trying to figure it out. You're worth the time to rest and to not even know what that means, but to just start to let yourself off the hook and really question those beliefs. If there's anything on you that says you have to do this, that is the ego. The spirit never commands and never demands. And I listened to the ego for a long time, spiritually speaking. I got to get better. I got to do this. I got to forgive. I got. Until I was like, one day it was just like, wow, I just can't do that anymore. And there's no happiness in it, no true happiness. Because who you are is happiness. Who you are is just so simple and beautiful. But it's almost like we've just been programmed, completely programmed. And it all goes back to the tiny mad idea. As long as you are seeing that tiny mad idea is literally driving your whole entire existence until you say reverse. I'm ready for the reversal of thinking. And then you start to trace it back and bring it back and go, oh, I do this to myself. Even this thought, I'm not good enough. Just to start to question, would the Spirit tell you that? Would the love of God say that, whisper that into your ear? You better improve. I don't think so.
It does get subtle. It's like these fine filaments of parchment, tissue paper. It just feels so, refined.
Subtle.
More and more. The subtleties just get louder.
Yeah. And then the closer you get to your release, those small things are no longer acceptable. Where you used to live with them, it's like white noise. You just lived with them. So.
Yeah, and to really question it. Who is that? Who is it that's believing this story? Like, just seeing how I combine myself again and again to that addiction of unworthiness, and to start listening deeply to that other wise, gentle, loving voice that's like, girl, chill, like, you're good, just keep going. But you can also relax, and that was a big deal for Willow. Yeah,
you can be carried. You can be carried. So they're all lofty ideas until you actually have them in experience. And our joy is to share. I always loved having witnesses that walked before me, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought I did, which was one of the biggest problems. And so, you know, it's wonderful to have mighty companions that you feel like, you know, and for the most part to come with the I don't know mind. No, actually, Calico, I don't know what's best for you, but I'm willing to sit down and pray with you and let, you know, and that's what we really want to let go of in a lot of ways, is this going out and trying to get somebody else to give you the answer. Please. That is helpful. I'm not saying across the board it's not helpful, but it's within. The kingdom of heaven is within. To trust that you are that kingdom and that you have it all the time. And you don't need somebody telling you what you need to be doing. I mean, if you're in an assignment with somebody that it feels like it's most helpful and you're going through something, yes, it's great to be able to trust somebody that can see something, because a lot of times I couldn't see my own self-delusion. But because I was a mighty companion that I knew I could trust, who could share, like, hey, you know, you might want to check this out. So I think it's just getting deeper and deeper in touch with your own true power. Stop bleeding it out, you know, with, you know, watching so much YouTube spiritual teachers. They're all subtly different. And I remember when I was in community and we were, you know, we were kind of handing down the guidance that there's no other, you're not to be listening to Muja, you're not to be this, 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 and this. And a lot of people would think that was control, when actually it was love, because it is, there are subtle differences, and once you're mind trained and you're through things, you can listen and you can hear it with a discerning voice. It's not like you cut them off, but while you're in a deeper training, it's nice to have a purified form of that training, of just that, do just this, you know. And so just kind of check how much you're, and also it's an addiction because you don't want to do your own work. You rather hear and be uplifted for 5.5 minutes about what somebody just said, and then you're back to being the same way you felt before, and so then you open another video or whatever. It's like a junkie. So yeah. So we thank you very much for being here, and I really feel like it's a prayer when we're together. It's like that we will all be blessed just by the very, very coming together. You know, that our minds will be uplifted and we'll be blessed in our hearts, and that, you know, maybe something will come through later, or it's coming through now, whatever. Just to allow and to be open-minded. I love open-mindedness, and whatever resonates, then keep that. Whatever doesn't, you don't need to have a big story about it. Just let it go. You know, that doesn't resonate, but that did. You know, and so I always, when I talk with people now, I hear it in a sparkly kind of way. Like if it's something for me to actually hear, I can hear it because it lights up. But the rest of the time I'm just connecting with our oneness. It's like, I don't care what you're saying. Like, what does that have to do? Like words are words, you know. We want to get beyond the words, and especially in community, guys, if you're living at Namaste or whatever, you got to stop paying attention to what people are saying, because otherwise you'd probably be in conflict with them most of the time. Yeah. So it's good to connect on a different level. Like, I'm going to connect with you because you're me, and I don't want to judge myself. I don't want to judge myself anymore by judging you, because you're only hurting yourself. So I want to play a song, beautiful song, to kind of have just a few moments in quiet and with this song, and just know that, you know, we're so happy that you're here. And if you need anything at all, you know, we are available. I think that remember why you came here. I think that's what it's really all about, you know. There is a deep mesmerization of a seeming world of form happening. And just to remember, it's like that's what everything in this life is for, is it can be used to remember. or it can be used to sleep. And whatever that choice is, it is. So we just join you in the remembrance of the naturalness and the beauty and the simplicity and the joy and the ease and the effortlessness of what we are at our core. We're not meant to struggle. We're not meant to effort. We're not meant to suffer. We're not meant to be in fear, and fear is not real. Fear is not real. And to start to approach that and pierce that and dissolve that, then that naturalness arises and that beauty arises, and that realization of walking in the remembrance and the happy dream is a reality. It's not something that needs to be put off into some future goal.
When I expose something, it's like,
isn't it
I'm not gonna
amazing?
bug him anymore. He keeps telling on me.
Aww, yeah, exactly.
I'm telling on the ego every time.
That's a great way to say it. I'm not going to let you hide out in the shadows of my mind and grow and have babies and.
You bully.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
still nibble a little, but I don't get hooked. I'm the fish that got away.
Ah, a little. And if sometimes you're caught, then you do the release,
That's right.
catch and release. That's what I love about it. Is, really, truly, the healing work is what we're here to do, and to think that there's a problem with that is insane. So if you're having an upset, I say there are no problems. You're just, something wants to come up and out. There's this beautiful acceptance with that. Like, you're the alchemist. You're the one who's changing that lead into gold. It's like, that's what we want to do. I used to judge myself for going through something. It's like, well, that's going to be a long process of hopelessness if you keep judging the healing and not the...
Or suppressing fear. That's what I had an experience in Portugal with the medicine.
Right.
It's like I touched the face of God. It was just very, very beautiful.
Yeah.
And then after that, I had so much fear.
Right.
And then we were going to do a film. I finally told Suzanne, I can't do it because I'm just, this fear has come in.
And let's talk about that just because it was really funny, because it just got uncovered a few days ago. Like, she was having this fear, and it's not uncommon, if you've done medicine, it's not uncommon to have kind of a, down the line, some fear arise. And we teach people how to work with that, because it's a wonderful opportunity to work with fear, because fear isn't real. So, okay, what is it that's arising? But she had this experience in her room, which I was in her room before the retreat started, and when she came in, she took the room I was in. And she was saying, and I remember you telling us at first about this breather, like she had done the medicine, she was back in her room, and there was something was breathing, right? And it was scaring her really bad, and was like...
And I put my hands over my ears, and I couldn't hear her.
Right.
So I'm like, fuck, it's in here.
It's in the room.
And I went through the whole room, and it was still breathing.
So this is so great. So I heard her tell that. I was like, wow, that's interesting. I was in that room. I didn't hear her breathe. But then it was just like last week. I woke up in the middle of the night. At first, I never thought again about what you said. And all of a sudden, I was like, she wasn't hearing a breather. She was hearing the air conditioner. And I remember when we were meditating in that room. Remember, we would meditate in that room, and you could hear it. It would go,
Oh, yeah.
and then it would stop, and then it'd be like, and I was under the air conditioner, and I didn't believe it was the air conditioner. And then I just thought, I'm going to get up and just, and it felt like it was on the other side of the room. I was like,
Dead.
as I said, read it wasn't a breather. But this is how our mind, this is how our mind works. And yeah, I can tell that story about the little deer. It was such a powerful story about the little deer. If you guys have time, it's very short. But I was driving up the canyon in Utah, and this little deer came out on the road, and I had to slow way down. And in my perception, he had 2 broken back legs. And he was a little tiny Bambi, like he had little spots and everything, He was very small, and I just like, and I had just had this amazing experience of release, moments before. And and then I my perception kicked in, And all of a sudden I'm there with this deer with these 2 broken legs, and I'm thinking, and I could hear, because I'd just come off this really deep experience with hearing something very profound, and I was in this beautiful state, and then there was this deer, and it said, are you gonna bite the bait here? Are you gonna bite the bait? And because I was like, I need to, do something, get this deer or whatever, and I drove on, and I said, no, I'm not gonna. This is very deep work with the hallucination, right? Like, okay, this is just going to pull me out of what I was just in. No, I'm going to believe you. I'm going to trust you. And I went on. And about a week later, I was watching something that came up on YouTube, and it was this baby deer, and it was walking, and it had just been born. And I was like, that baby deer didn't even have broken legs. Yeah. But I was, you know what I mean? It was like this moment where I was like, holy crap, it didn't even have broken legs. And so I was able to just like the confirmation of me staying in this light. It was like I was shown the untruth of what I was perceiving. And it didn't, whether the deer had broken legs or it didn't have broken legs, it was the lesson that the Spirit was trying to show me in that moment. Could have been other moments where I felt, inspired to get out, and if the deer had a problem, to help it. But the Spirit knew the deer didn't have a problem, because there was no problem with that deer. It didn't have broken legs. And so this is how tricky the mind is. And so that's why the purpose is the only stabilizing factor. The purpose is the only stabilizing factor in this world of mass hallucination. And it's going to kick up the tiny mad idea at you as often as possible. It's going to kick up that belief, that fearful belief that we're separate from our source, and it's going to play out abuse, victims, killing the whales, the dolphins, whatever. It's just going to continue. It's going to continue. So that's why I like that thought of bringing to mind when something intense seems to be happening. When Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, how would you respond if you knew you were hallucinating? And that it's no more important than the dream you had last night. You are doing this to yourself. You are making up these stories. So, oh, okay. Now, not you, the real truth of who you are, but that which you've identified with it. It's not the truth. You got to pull back into, and you got to come back here where you become the dreamer of the dream, where you actually know that you're dreaming, and in that there's peace. And then there could be right action, there could be this, there could be that. There's true helpfulness and presence. But when you think there's a problem, there's no true presence. There's no true presence if you think there's a problem. If you think there's a problem and you go to fix it, that's the unhealed healer, and you will keep the problem in place. The only release of this world is to pass it by for real in the mind. And then whatever it is that you're here to contribute or share because it's strengthening this experience within yourself, you will do. It'll be obvious. It'll come to you. And then you become this light. You become this light, But while I think you have a problem, I would never, I mean, who would want to be around somebody who thinks that you've got a problem, that you really have a problem? It's like, no, you don't. You think you have a problem, and if you come to me, I can certainly, hold hands and be in prayer and see how to release that belief. Because every time you release a belief like that, you are releasing the belief and the hold the separation has on your mind.
And the whole world.
And the whole world starts to, yeah. Well, think about it, guys. Okay, if we're going to do the dream thing, the dream you had last night, it can be very intricate, can't it? But it is one-dimensional. You think it's got lots of, there's thousands of people protesting. No. It's deep. If it's a dream, it's a dream, it's a dream. And just to question that, like, no, I don't believe that. I believe there are 1,000 people. Okay, then let's. So it's as deep as down the rabbit hole as you want to go. But it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring, because if you're sick of suffering, then there's a way out, Even in the subtlest of ways. There should be a peaceful inspiration that you wake up with.